Thank you.
Funny for everybody else, but.
Good evening, and welcome to this July 21st, 2020 public hearing. This is a, Manager, do you want to read what this content of this public hearing?
I have a long paragraph for this one.
Very good.
Actually, 3. The first is an ordinance on and resolutions on Parks and Recreation, SDCs. System development charges, SDCs, provide a means of funding capital improvements that provide capacity and infrastructure systems to support a growing community. Parks and Recreation is one of 4 primary infrastructure systems that are supported in part by SDCs. When the City Council adopted the 2018 Parks and Recreation System Plan, a new project list and priorities for implementation were established. That project list is the basis for updating the Parks and Rec SDC methodology. The City Council discussed the SDC methodology update at 2 work sessions in July and October of 2019. The proposed methodology that is the subject of this public hearing includes many of the concepts that were discussed in those work sessions, including a progressive residential rate structure to incentivize smaller, more affordable homes and a 2-year phase-in plan. The proposed modification to the Parks and Recreation methodology were posted on the city's website and made available to all interested parties 60 days prior to this public hearing, and notices were mailed to all interested parties. A council work session is scheduled after this public hearing for February 12th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. So we just have four people signed up to testify. Those wishing to speak during the public hearing must submit a completed request to speak form to the information desk prior to the beginning of the public hearing. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. You will have 3 minutes to comment. There are lights on the timer. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. And our first speaker is Ed McMahon.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Ed McMahon, Executive Director of the Home Builders Association of Lane County, 1065 River Road, Eugene. A little over a year ago, Council introduced 3 priorities: housing, homelessness, and public safety. We passed a payroll tax to meet the goals of the public safety, and we passed a construction excise tax to help with the homeless issue. When it comes to housing, a 50% increase was passed to the transportation SDC. Do know that we appreciated the fact that you split that fee up, half last year and the other half in a few months. However, still a substantial increase to the cost of housing. Next, the construction excise tax was approved, and we certainly appreciated the lower discounted rate and the 2-year offset. However, another substantial increase to the cost of housing. Council approved the Park and Rec project list in July of 2018. A year and a half later, now you must deal with the financial consequences of that approved list. A list that results in a 52% increase to the majority of the homes being built in this market today. Know that we do appreciate the new approach that staff took while presenting this methodology. Staff presented you with several options that ranged from no SDC increase at all to the 52% increase I just mentioned. Other options presented included the progressive residential rate structure and also a 3 to 5 year phased-in approach. I'd like to present another option. No park SDC increase for 2 years. The Parks SDC is a chance for this council to make an appropriate policy decision to help with the housing crisis. Please consider this an opportunity to allow housing tools and strategies and the clear and objective cleanup to take in effect before we consider increasing the cost of housing in the second tightest housing market in America. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tiffany Edwards.
Gotcha.
Good evening, Mayor Vinnis, members of council. I'm Tiffany Edwards with Ward 5, here representing the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to share the position that our local government affairs council unanimously took on the proposed new Parks SDC methodology. This council had previously identified 3 immediate priorities for Eugene: housing, homelessness, and public safety. In 2017, the Chamber was a leader in ensuring unprecedented support for a construction excise tax, which would allow us to deliver more units of affordable housing. We participated and continue to advocate for the housing tools and strategies work to identify and remove barriers to housing affordability, diversity, and availability. Last year, businesses and employees said yes to reaching into their pockets to support much-needed public safety and homelessness service support with a significant $23 million annual payroll tax. The Chamber also supported the city's parks bond and levy that the community supported at the ballot last year, and the phased-in approach to the transportation SDC increases. Businesses and community members have been very generous in supporting the city's needs, but the most recent proposal for Parks SDCs reflects an increase that we simply can't support at this time. This cost will add further increases to the cost of housing at a time we are in the middle of our biggest housing crisis in history. This proposed increase is competing with the community's top priority, and we ask council to make responsible choices to stay the course and prioritize housing. There were many concerns that LGAC had. I'll just share a few. Committing to projects that had no long-term sustainable operational funding, the need to prioritize voter-approved projects supported by the bond and levy, higher SDC increases on multifamily homes and homes with more bedrooms, which is where our families live, and high administrative fees of 9%, and a number of other questions for which they wanted more information and closer study. So in closing, the Chamber proposes no increases at this time and believes the current budget will support the Priority 1 projects, and we would support further study over a 2-year period and would be happy to participate in those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Gannon.
I gotta watch that timer closely because I'm gonna think out loud with you, because I have a lot of respect for the possibility that new ideas brought to your attention might result in some different approaches. I should point out to you that over the last 5 years, homeless advocates found at least 3 undeveloped park sites that were eligible for a temporary camp. One of the things that came up in those discussions, 2 of them at least didn't have water. They were going to be parks, but they didn't have water. So we thought, why not, as part of the city siting of a camp for unhoused people, make some kind of arrangements for a trade-off and work to do some of the basic stuff that needs to be done, that would be done at some day down the road. I'd also like to point out that right now we have a number of people sort of looking at every aspect of criminalization of the poor. And one of the fundamental places is the speed with which a person can be ejected from the parks and prohibited from being there for a long period of time. So I think that it's really important to take a look at how we can, at the managerial level of the city, look at how these kinds of trade-offs can be put into play, and consequently resolving some of the issues for shelter for unhoused people at the moment, and over the long haul, perhaps reduce the capital expenses in developing parks. It's really important to look at those possibilities because there are trade-offs going on. And the other final thing I wanted to say in terms of looking at the parks is that I proposed 5 years ago to the Parks Department that volunteers that I was in contact with would be interested in planting evergreens to combat global warming. And the response from the Parks Department was, we have enough trees, we're all ready for global warming. I don't think that's even close to reality, and it really needs to be examined. And maybe there's another trade-off happening here, that good parks will lead to more protection of the atmosphere.
Thank you. Our final speaker is John Borofsky.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I read a 110-page AIS and felt that there were a few things in there that I should bring up. You guys are often forced with making decisions on different priorities. You know, there's different priorities that we've put up, Envision Eugene, densification, all these types of things. And some of those are playing out in the new SDC methodology. One of the ideas that you had was that we want to incentivize smaller houses. So you came up with a methodology that worked on actual number of people that live in the house rather than just straight door fronts like was the old methodology. And that works great to incentivize smaller houses, but it disincentivizes larger multifamily type dwellings. As a member of the committee that is looking on how to spend the CET, we had a presentation from some of our low-income housing people, and then what they're saying is that the 2 and 3 and 4 bedroom apartments, there aren't any in this town available. And so by raising the fees on those multifamily ones, we're actually disincentivizing one of your Envision Eugene goals, which is densification, building multifamily housing in the core of downtown by raising those SDCs. So those are some of the conflicting things that I think you need to look at when you're looking at this methodology. Another thing that I think is important that you have to consider is there was a parks bond and a promise that was made when we voted yes for that parks bond. There was a list that said we want these built. And I think it's very important that the SDCs that are needed to complete the things that are on those lists be built, so that we have the credibility going forward when we come out with other ones. I don't know how you balance all of those, but I think that stepping back and taking a deeper look may be appropriate, because it's not just, if we put it in this way, we're going to fund all these projects and we're going to build small houses. There's all kinds of competing things, and I don't know if you can tackle all of those in a work session on the 12th. It may take more time, just because there are competing interests, and the ball has been moving. You know, there is a need for multifamily, and the price for multifamilies has gone up. So just some things to think about. Fund what we said we would fund, but also look at your other priorities that you've set forth for this community. Thanks.
Thank you. And that closes the public comment. Are there counselors who wish to comment? Counselor Surratt. Oh, wait, I have Counselor Clark first in the queue, and then Counselor Surratt.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everyone coming out to speak for the hearing tonight. John, I would tell you that during our presentations, I did a little extrapolation and math when we were seeing the things on the board there. And we learned from asking those questions of staff that we can build 51 new parks projects and not raise SDCs at all from current numbers. We can keep a zero increase and still build 51 new projects. That was what we talked there. We may want to reorder once ones of those were promised, and I agree with you. We should look more closely into it. In the interest of no surprises, my friend Chris here, I will make the motion that was raised tonight by both of the other speakers there. I would prefer that we just not raise it at all, make it that simple, but I would accept as a halfway that we postpone for 2 years. So when we get to that, I'll do
Yeah,
that motion.
it's just a public hearing tonight. We're
Right,
not-
no, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
when we
okay.
get there, I'm
When we
going to
get
make
there.
that motion.
Okay, gotcha. All right, Counselor Cyrett and then Counselor Semple.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughtful comment, and we also got some input via email, and Counselor Clark kind of spoke a little bit to what I was going to ask. I was going to ask for our work session on this topic, if we could have some information on what would be the impact on how we would deal with our project list if we were to postpone the proposed increase for 2 years. And if we did that, might it allow us to modify the current phase-in that's been built in? You know, how could that all be modulated? And then I also had a question about the administrative fees, which are, my understanding, set at 9% of what is brought in through the SDCs. And if we raise the SDCs a fairly dramatic amount, that means we get quite a lot more money. And what is the plan for that money? Do our administrative needs increase proportionately? So those are my questions for the work session. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Semple.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. I always find them helpful. I love parks. I want us to do the things we said we want to do, but I'm not sure that the time frame is essential. So I am interested in what Councilor Cyrett said about how it would affect the order or list or when of these projects. But I'm also really concerned that we're not doing anything really to incentivize housing. We keep saying SDCs, CETs, give us some more, and we need it for the homeless, but we keep going on and on about how much we need more housing. And we've got to give a break to the housing side too. So I like these ideas, and I'm looking forward to doing them. Thanks.
Counselor Zelenka.
Yeah, for the work session, I am interested in not disincentivizing the type of housing that we need, which is low to moderate income. So I'm wondering if there's a way to either have a waiver for, say, houses under $275,000 or whatever the number was we did for the CET, or have a lower rate that would not disincentivize that type of housing which we need. We have other types of housing in abundance, and we'll continue to get that. But it's those particular ones that we should be, the affordable housing that we should be trying to incentivize. So I'd like to see that type of analysis done.
Okay, anybody else with comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone who testified. That was very helpful, will be a good work session. And now we are ready for our next public hearing.
Correct. So you might recall that several Monday nights ago, we had a annexation on the consent agenda, which prior to your last process session was kind of our normal practice. You voted to hold a public hearing on this after hearing from an individual during that time. So this public hearing provides an opportunity for people to provide testimony about the property owner's request to annex their .19 acre parcel of land located to the west of 830 Willow Avenue. Following the hearing, depending on what you hear, council may adopt a resolution annexing the land to the city, modify the resolution, or deny the request to annex to the city based on the approval criteria addressed in the council packet for this item. Action on this annexation request has been scheduled for next Monday's council meeting, but action could occur tonight if you would rather do that, and there's a motion in your AIS.
Okay, and I have been prompted that this is a quasi-judicial hearing. So as I open the public hearing on a proposed resolution to annex a 1.19 acre parcel of land located to the west of 830 Willow Avenue, Those wishing to speak during this public hearing should have already submitted a completed request to speak form to the information desk. Do any counselors need to disclose any bias, conflicts of interest, ex parte communications, or abstentions pursuant to EC 9.70653? Any ex parte? All right. That's great. So let's see. Have staff received any challenges to a counselor's? We don't need to do that because there were no ex parte degree. Let me work my way through this. Okay, and you've already introduced the topic, so we're good. I should have done that first, probably. Okay, we have testimony presented at this public hearing should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria or other criteria that the speaker believes apply to the decision. The applicable approval criteria for this proposed annexation are from Eugene Code Section 9.8725, which states that 1, the land proposed to be annexed is within the city's urban growth boundary and is A, contiguous to the city limits, or B, separated from the city only by a public right-of-way or a stream, bay, lake, or other body of water. 2, the proposed annexation is consistent with applicable policies in the Metro Plan and in any applicable refinement plans. 3, the proposed annexation will result in a boundary in which the minimum level of key urban facilities and services as defined in the Metro Plan can be provided in an orderly, efficient, and timely way. The failure of anyone to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city council and parties an opportunity to respond will preclude an appeal on that issue. Okay. I have one speaker. A reminder, please give your name and address when you come to the podium to speak. You will have 3 minutes to comment. The timer and lights on the podium indicate the time you have to speak. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments, and the red light indicates the end of the 3 minutes. I now open the public hearing, and we have one speaker, Elizabeth Steinhaus, speaking in support.
I'm Elizabeth Steinhaus, 3660 Sisters View Avenue, Eugene, Oregon. I don't know what ward I'm part of, but I am going to keep it short and sweet. I'm the owner of the said property, and I'm not sure why we're even here at this point. I don't know what the objection was. I'm just here to say that, the idea of wanting to have housing available to people, this is a buildable lot. This is a lot that will have a home built on it. It meets all the criteria for the annexation. The application was submitted and it was approved through the city. As far as I know, there were no problems, objections. I met all the criteria. I have no idea why we're even here, but I'm here to say that I would like to see it approved tonight. We'd like to move forward with construction on the property and get another home on a completely vacant lot that's been sitting there for a long time, not being built on. Someone can own a home and live in it, and I think that's part of your goals from what I'm hearing tonight. That's really all I had to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
And address anyone else's objection, if there was an objection or a question.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Okay, any counselors wishing to comment? Okay, I have Councilor Clark, and then Councilor Zelenka, and then Councilor Syret. Anybody else? Okay, Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to go ahead and respond by saying this is more of a structural thing. There are an awful lot of annexations, especially in the River Road, Santa Clara area, that take place. And we, sometimes by how we structure the approval process of those annexations at this table, we end up with some with the ability for neighbors or other people to come and be heard if they agree or disagree, and sometimes not. So oftentimes we will just reschedule something in order that if there's any neighbor that has an issue, they have a chance to speak their piece. Nobody did, so it's good.
You're out of turn, yep.
Yeah,
You're out of
sorry.
turn.
But I'll talk to you later if you have a
Public
question.
hearing, but afterwards. Okay, Councilor Zelenka.
Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, I think this is more of a pro forma thing than anything else. But I did have a question. I didn't quite understand the maps. How would this property be access by Caprice Way or Willow Ave? Because it looks landlocked. This is the right-of-way behind the houses on Caprice Way. Is that that's a private access utility?
Good evening. My name's Althea Sullivan, an assistant planner with the city's planning division. If you want to go to page 125, and that's the page in your agenda packet.
Map.
So and I have my pages turned this way. The property that is in for the annexation is shaded or cross-hatched. And then you can see extending to the right of the page, there's a dotted line. That area is an easement, so there would be a driveway which would provide access from Willow Avenue, and Caprice Way would not provide access to this property.
Okay. And that doesn't currently exist, the driveway?
I'm not sure what exactly is on the property. I know there's part of a driveway there, but there is an easement that exists on the property right now.
Thanks. That's all I have.
Okay. Councilor Saret.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming down to the public hearing and reiterating your meeting the criteria for the annexation. We did have someone come to our general public forum on, I have it as 11/25, and raised an objection to the annexation or questioned whether it was practical. And so rather than just approve it as a pro forma in the consent calendar, a couple of councilors, including myself, made a motion to move it to a public hearing in order to just give sufficient time if there were other folks out there who had some questions that we wanted to explore before making the approval. So we did kind of put you through an extra step to try to do our due diligence and be responsive to what we had heard at public forum. So we do appreciate you coming down to speak to us tonight and sharing what you did. And I hope that the mayor will entertain a motion to approve the annexation this evening.
Absolutely. Okay, any other comments, questions about this? So at this time, I'll close the public hearing and the record. And as you have requested and the manager mentioned, we can act this evening, and we have a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution approving the proposed annexation request consistent with the applicable approval criteria.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It passes. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming, and we are adjourned.